Next up, I'm going to get ready to pull the injection pump. So I need to get this thing at top dead center and then actually pin the pump. So this thing has a really nice feature. There's 2 zeros here, and then there's a 0 on the crankshaft, and then when the 2 line up, that'll be essentially top dead center. So I'm going to just start rotating this around. Next, I'm going to pull this cover out. Inside here is a little device that you can pin the pump. So essentially, when you remove it from the engine, you can keep it in time. So this little pin right here is what came out of there. Normally it sits like this when it's in the actual motor and the motor's running, but you can pull it out. So you can see that little groove. When you flip it around, that goes up and indexes against a little pin that's in the actual pump, and that way you can keep it in time so that when you pull it off the truck and then put it back on, it'll be exactly where you left it. So very handy. Obviously, when you have this on there, you need to be careful with it. You wouldn't want to start the engine. You know, having a bunch of broken crud inside the injection pump is probably not what you want. Well, I'm not sure how easily you can see, but up inside there's a little pin that's kind of coming from the right side and going horizontally. So that little tool that I showed you, that goes and clips on there, and then you screw the cover back on. Alright, so one thing that has come up, normally I would have had this stuff out while it was still in the truck. I would use a barring tool, which is a device that goes into a little slot on one of the back covers and locks the engine against the flex plate. But because I tried to pull this all out in one unit, I'm going to have to do this a little bit differently. So I'm going to pull that pin back out because I definitely do not want to break it. I'll just go ahead and put that back in with the non-slotted side in just for now. I'm going to try and use a breaker bar on the crank and see if I can loosen this off. Okay, well I just got this injection pump nut broken loose. This gear is still pressed onto the actual injection pump shaft, so I'm going to have to use a puller to pop that off. I can go back to top dead center, put the locating tool in there to keep the pump in time, and then I can go ahead and pop this gear off and everything should be fine. Okay, well I've got the pump back pinned, so everything is held in time. This nut is loose here, so I'll go ahead and back this off. And now I've got this little puller that I got from Power Driven Diesel, which I will go ahead and put in here. Okay, now you just go ahead and tighten this down and the gear will pop right off. Okay, there we go. Now there's nothing holding the injection pump in time with the engine, which is why that little timing pin thing is used. Next up, I'm going to remove this oil feed line that goes into the injection pump here. One thing I'm going to tell you, I had this fail, this line down below, and it was pretty ugly to change. So if you ever happen to have your truck apart, you know, down past this point, and the thing's an old truck like mine is, I would probably recommend just changing this line here. I didn't when I put it all back together, and it was quite a challenge to reach up and reach down in there, because normally you've got the head sitting over top of all this, and then you've kind of got to reach up from the bottom. And I mean, this particular fitting isn't a big deal, but where it goes into the block down below is pretty tough to get at. It wasn't you know, the end of the world, but it was one of those things where you're, you know, armpit deep in mechanical stuff and everything's oily and whatnot, so probably wise to just go ahead and change this. Alright, bit of tape on here. I'll put a bit of tape on here, just a little bit of cheap insurance. Now I'm going to remove the nuts that hold the injection pump onto this cover here. Probably a good idea to be really careful with this step. This thing is surprisingly heavy and they're also very expensive. So I'm just going to take it off enough so that I can confirm that the thing is in fact loose, and then once I'm ready to actually pull it off, then I'll pull off the remaining nuts and continue on. And now I can slide this thing off here, and it is actually surprisingly heavy. Okay, it's just an O-ring that's kind of provides a bit of pressure to pull it out of this case here, but now I will go ahead and put this somewhere safe. Well, a quick look over here now. You can see that this thing is really coming along. I think I'll probably leave this pump on this actual cover here. It's pretty easy to pull off just the whole thing together. When you change a camshaft with this motor sitting in the truck, you're supposed to put doweling down the holes that the push rods go in, and you kind of jam them into the tappets and then lift all of them up and sort of tie them or zip tie them together just to be able to keep them out of the way so you can move the cam in or out. But as it sits, I got this thing on an engine stand, so it'll be really easy to rotate around. So I think what I might do next is just leave this stuff for now. I'll spin the motor around, pull the pan and the oil pickup, and then once you've got the thing upside down, it just holds all the tappets up out of the way, and you can easily just pop the cam right out of there. Alright, and just like that, she's upside down. Just put the pin back in so that it can't rotate on me. Time to pull all these bolts out, pop the pan off, remove the oil pickup, and then we can start having a look at the crankshaft. Bolts are all removed. Time to pull the pan. Just remove the 4 bolts for this. Now I can pull this out of here. Now I'm going to remove the pistons and rods. As you can see, I've got a little piece of paper in there. It says number 1. Okay, we're on to number 2 now. One thing I am noticing is there is a lot of oil up here. I mean, maybe that's normal, but considering there's 2 rings below that, I have to say I'm a little surprised that there's that much up there. So I actually forgot the GoPro at home this morning. So I'm trying to show every step, but basically what I'm doing here is removing these 2 bolts, holding a hand underneath the block to catch the piston, and then just very lightly pushing the piston and rod down. Just using the handle of this soft base mallet and basically just kind of going like this and tapping it down once this stuff's off. So sorry, I'm trying to show every step, but I don't have a way to hold this on a tripod, and this is definitely a 2-handed job. Okay, well, a bit of an update. I'm not sure how easily you're going to be able to see this, but these cylinders have a ton of scoring in them. Okay, so I just loosened those bolts. This is one of those situations where you want to just take a second and be careful. All this writing here is pointed towards the rear of the engine, and if you look at the fronts, they're all just kind of seem to be smooth. So I'll take these out and put them in labeled bags. I'll just pull out number 1 first, so you basically just make sure these are loose. And then just gently rock them. Sorry, it's kind of a 2-handed job. That one looks pretty happy. So in order to pull this crank, I've got a couple of things I got to do. This is the rear main seal housing that we're looking at here, so obviously I'll need to pop that off. And then up front here, I might as well take this cover off now. This big gear here, this is for the camshaft, so I can go ahead and yank that out of there now. I'm gonna pop this little SOB out of here. This is the oil pump. Next up, we're gonna pull the camshaft out. Oil pump is out and put in a Ziploc bag. Now we've gotta undo these 2 bolts here. Okay, the nice thing with this big gear on here is that you can kind of use it to push so it's not just dragging. Just want to move real slow here. Okay, camshaft is out. Well, one thing that I haven't thought about in a long time is the killer dowel pin. You know, when I first got this truck and I was very new to 12 valves, that's one of the first things that is recommended to be done. So that is it right there. That has a tendency to wiggle out. It can get down in between the, I think it's in between the gear and another gear, or in between the gear and this case or something, and has a tendency to crack the block, and it can be a really serious thing. Would just go in here like that. You would torque that down. Tab keeps that pin from popping out. This is extremely important if you're planning on running a 12 valve. KDP is definitely something that there's a lot of talk about, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. Next up, we'll pull off this rear main seal cover. I actually have pulled all the bolts out now, so it should just gently slide off of there. Hopefully I can get it off with this. Oh no. I think I could probably lift that crank out of there and then maybe get it after. Next up, we're going to lift this thing out of here. I've got this strap from a ratchet strap. It's pretty heavy duty. I don't know how much this thing weighs, maybe 150 pounds at the most or so. I've got it wrapped all the way, looped around here and looped around there with something that's kind of oblong like this. You never know how it's going to behave, so I think this is going to be pretty secure. So let's go ahead and try lifting her up now and see what happens. Okay. Lifting, gotta make sure I got clearance on this. Oh, there we go. All right, crank is out of here. I am now going to wrap it in a moving blanket. This thing is definitely needs to be looked after. I don't want to risk any scratches or anything bad happen. Obviously, I'll leave it all oily so it doesn't get any rust or anything like that on it. There she sits, all snug as a bug in a rug. I'll move that over somewhere, but for now it's nice and protected. Well, I just got the bearings all removed out of the mains. Next thing is just to pull the tappets out of there. I like to put all this kind of stuff back, very cylinder and valve specific, so who knows if it matters. It probably does, so I am definitely going to do it. We are basically down to a bare block now, so that is pretty much what goes into, you know, stripping one of these things down.